Welcome to HOLDFAST, the podcast, Episode 2, The Battle for Tor'Jadin. Guest hosted by Lady Val, and narrated by Jake Dowzell. Historians agree that the events that took place in the year 351 MC were a crucial turning point in the formation of the known world. Though the details are still hotly debated, all can acknowledge the profound and unique circumstances the nations found themselves in. But to understand just how incredible the developments of 351 were, we must first understand the history of the known world, its division of territories, and the players amongst its stage. The first division is the provinces of the Tor'Jadin Empire. Imperial history began over 400 years ago in the year 517 TC. King Tobias Medaka III of Tor'Jadin saw the need and personal benefits to unifying the surrounding states and kingdoms under a single figurehead. He proclaimed himself Emperor Medaka I, leader of the imperial throne, and thus began Year 1 MC of the Tor'Jadin Empire. Medaka I was an ambitious ruler who instilled a policy of expansionism within his council, setting the tone for what the empire would soon become. A power and land-hungry entity hell-bent on the hostile requisition of any and all territories in the known world. Medaka I had few successes before passing, but his predecessors carried his ideals forward and were victorious in their conquests. Gnostianism is the official religion of the empire, and often used as a way to passively invade neighbouring territories. The head of the church, called the Primus, holds one of the most powerful positions amongst the council. The emperor controls armies and law, but the Primus is the influencer of the people. In year 76, an order of religious knights, charged with upholding the doctrines of Gnos, were instated. The elite force, known as the Order of the Talon, are under the direct orders of the Primus. Today, the Empire's lands have spread from the edges of the Great Wastes to the Southlands, continuing east to encompass the West Herne Sea and Southern Forest. In the north, they hold lands between Menhaden to the Northern Sea. The history of our second division, the Confederacy of the Eastern Woods, is far more loosely documented. Passed down through the stories of tribal elders from generation to generation, it is difficult to decipher fact from exaggeration and metaphor. In spite of this, there have been efforts to do so, such as the work of Serana Strongwinds, who has researched the subjects on behalf of the Elven Council of Knowledge. From her texts, we can discern the Confederacy was formed as a resistance to the ever-expanding reaches of the Empire. The woodland clans were once disjointed and fiercely territorial over land boundaries. The varied political and religious ideologies were enough to cause hostility, paranoia, racism, and war between them. Segregation was the law of the land. But this mindset was forced to change when the Red Soldiers invaded in year 115. The tribes on the coast of the Herne Sea were massacred. Only a few survived by taking refuge in the forests. No longer could the clans afford to remain disbanded. The loss of their sacred lands, the enslavement of their women and children, and the extinction of their people was at stake. A treaty was signed by the three largest tribes, the Skay, the Pyren, and the Kern, uniting them together against their common enemy, and the Confederacy of the Eastern Woods was born. Conflicts between the Empire and the Confederacy continued for hundreds of years, with occasional breaks of peace in between. There have been numerous attempts to reach a truce and put an end to the wars, the most successful being the 2 Years' Treaty, a dismal failure named for how long it lasted. In recent years, the groups have reached somewhat of a stalemate, only occasionally finding themselves in minor disputes over land boundaries. The territory between the two groups have become heavily disputed zones, making up our third division, known as the Frontier. Settlements in the Frontier are eclectic in their political and religious beliefs, and often remain neutral in times of battle. However, no amount of land, power, or sharpened steel could prepare neither Confederacy nor Empire for the events of year 351. A fatal and mysterious plague swept through the nations, bringing with it more than just mass infection and anguish. From the moment it first appeared, everything changed. The earliest cases were traced to Krakenberg, a village near the southern pass. Within a matter of days, it managed to spread from the edges of the Spirit Forest to Manhattan in the west. Within weeks, entire populations had become afflicted and succumbed to the disease. Within a year, hundreds of thousands had perished, including 2 emperors. There was seemingly no end to the death and suffering, as even the greatest scientists and shamans were unable to find a cure or cause. After a couple years, the plague seemed to evolve, and the non-material world began to alter in strange ways. For starters, the lucky few who survived the outbreak occasionally found themselves with the use of magical elemental power. Superstitions caused the new mages to be feared, outcasted, and sometimes executed. Capital punishment, however, was no longer much of a penalty. Death itself had modified, and now, for the most part, seemed to be a temporary affliction. People could pass away twice, even 3 times or more, before staying put in their graves. But perhaps the most curious anomaly the plague brought was the manifestation of the rifts. Large, bright portals were opening all across the known world, and through them came a new race of beings. They called themselves the Fae, children of the Fairy. They varied in appearance, size, and behaviour, but were, for the most part, a united front. Some were humanoid with only minor differences in their makeup, such as pointed ears. Others were animalistic in their nature, with tusks and horns. The timing of their arrival, coupled with the similarities between their magical abilities and the ones recently developed in some humans, caused tensions to mount. The reigning emperor, Grax of Charkon, had declared the Fae were blasphemous, ungodly, and the cause for the plague. He labelled them hostile invaders, a threat to humanity who must be exterminated. Being non-human was now a crime punishable by enslavement or death. After the eradication of the plague in year 358, the Empire sent emissaries to the many provinces to assess the damage and determine which colonies had survived. When they arrived in Sinsiput, they were surprised to find its capital bustling with activity and life, but not with humans. They discovered Tor'Jadin had been settled by the Fae, who had found it devoid of life after a large majority of Sinsiput had fallen to the plague. Their growing population was living peacefully, governing the city under the same system they had in the Mists. But the Emperor's propaganda was strong, and the worst was assumed. Within a fortnight, the emissaries returned with the Imperial army in tow, ready for battle. They gave the Fae an ultimatum: surrender Tor'Jadin and bow to the Empire, and they would be free to return to the Mists or continue living in the known world as slaves. Refuse, and they would face the steel of the Imperial soldiers. The Fae scoffed at the display of arrogance. Fairy had sent them to the known world to spread their influence, and they intended to do so. And though they had not seen war in many millennia, they were confident, perhaps even a little cavalier in their belief, that they could protect themselves against the uncivilized humans. They would bow to no one. The Empire lay siege to Sinsiput for 7 days. The Fae had underestimated the ruthlessness of the Imperial soldiers and were massacred by the hundreds. Assassins targeted the noble elven families in an attempt to unravel their society at the seams. They were successful in some respects, slaughtering most of the members of House Estelwen, the stewards of Fae culture. The nobles who had managed to escape the assassins hastily organized their houses into a plan of action. House Chthonic, along with Orc and Cairn prides who had settled outside the city, came to the aid of the rural communities. House Hywel and House Coloseth, the houses of strength and prosperity respectively, took charge to defend Tor'Jadin. Hywel's members were trained hunters and applied their tactics against the humans. Coloseth, providing some of the more cunning members of society, became strategists. House Chthonic, along with Orc and Cairn prides who had settled outside the city, came to the aid of the rural communities. House Hywel and House Coloseth, the houses of strength and prosperity respectively, took charge to defend Tor'Jadin. Hywel's members were trained hunters and applied their tactics against the humans. Coloseth, providing some of the more cunning members of society, became strategists. In spite of the Fae's best efforts, the Imperial army continued to push into Sinsiput. Their reliance on mana left them at a disadvantage, and their food supply began to dwindle. Their options were becoming less and less favourable by the day, and the pressure to reach an end to the suffering left some suggesting surrender. Back in Tor'Jadin, there was resistance against Grax and his attitude towards Fae. The Primus believed the new laws were sacrilegious, and the war was against the ideals of Nos. He sent the Order of the Talon to aid the Fae in their defence and bring an end to the siege. They divided their forces long enough for House Chthonic to return to the city and flank the invaders from the east. The Imperial generals were assassinated, and the Empire withdrew its forces. The battle, for now, had been won. As the blood washed away from the streets of Tor'Jadin, so did the suspicions and fears of the humans. Emperor Grax had passed on, and with him went his archaic views of the Fae. His successor, Medaka IV, had developed the use of magic after the plague, and needed the Fae's help to control them. To return the favour, and to thank them for their support in his claim to the throne, Medaka IV officially relinquished Sinsiput to the control of the noble elven families. They were now free to run their province in whatever way they saw fit, without intervention or threat of invasion. However, Sinsiput still remained Imperial land, and, should they ever try to separate, the Emperor promised they would live to regret it.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome back to HOLDFAST. This is episode 2.
Episode number 2. It's been a while.
Today...
It's been a while.
It's been a while. We're actually late with this episode, because I had to go out of town for work, and one of our people was sick. So, we're a little late with this episode, but we're here with it.
That's all good.
Today we're talking about, some of the political history of the world, as well as the Fae and the Plague.
We have a bit of world building to do, so we're going to try and touch bases on several points from the past and kind of bring you up to speed on where we are right now. Mm-hmm. And hopefully things will be a little bit more clear in the future episodes as soon as you know what we're talking about. So. And
it wouldn't be a world building episode if we weren't joined today by lore expert Hilary.
That's an interesting title. I don't think I've gotten that one before.
I can't think of anyone at the LARP who knows more about the lore in HOLDFAST.
You have literally written the Book of Fae.
Only because we didn't really have anything to go by other than Toronto's website, and Toronto's website is, no offense to you, Toronto, but web pages. They can be easier organized. Okay? And spelling mistakes. Please.
Hilary also plays the character Lady Val, who I personally consider to be a pretty important character in game. She's one of the members of the council. It seems like everything that's happening is happening around Lady Val.
But I'm not the main character. I'm the B plot.
You're the B plot?
I'm the B plot.
Who do you consider to be main character?
Everybody knows it's Timian. Everybody knows Timian's the main character. Whenever something happens, Timian's right in the middle of it. Lady Val's just the one that's standing on the sidelines going, alright, okay, there goes Timian, and there goes the horde of monsters chasing him. Okay, alright.
You know what? Now that you mention it, almost every single time, like every Saturday night when shit happens, Timian is involved in some way.
That's why Timian's the main character.
Dang.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the B subplot.
The side quest.
So yeah, let's get right into it. The question that's been on my mind to ask you since we started writing this episode, which by the way, I consider you a co-writer for this episode because you sent me so much information. What do you think is the cause of the plague?
Right.
That's actually, like, I did a little bit of research, like, before when I joined LARP, and
It is very vague. So, the plague itself, the origins of that is harder to trace than the origin of the devastation, which is what hit Annam. So, you're probably going to be doing a section on Annam eventually. But there was something that called the devastation that basically wiped out Annam, much like the plague wiped out the mainland.
Right.
Because Annam was hit by both. They were hit by the devastation, and then they were hit by the plague.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, that's why nobody lives on the Isle of the Dead. And that's why it's called the Isle of the Dead. It got hit twice. So the devastation was basically a huge elemental storm and a tsunami that hit Annam and wiped out most people living there. There is some lore in game that might suggest as to how this happened, specifically in the HOLDFAST lore. I and my character strongly believe that the rifts that have been appearing in game recently, which is a current storyline, there was there was an earlier rift alluded to that had happened, and through some of the events that happened during the episode, or should I say the event where the elves came into town, my character learned that Kinevin, which is a city ruled by not lizard folk, because lizard folk are a different species, but
they're reptilian though.
They're reptilian.
Right.
They're more like Argonians.
Okay.
From Skyrim. As
Gotcha.
opposed to lizard folk like, say, Lizalfos from Zelda.
Yeah.
Their society's very advanced.
Right.
Those are the royals that came in.
These are the royals that came in.
Yeah, and
that was your first game.
That was my first game.
Yeah.
So my character actually got Teak, the extremely psychic character, to trace where one of these necklaces came from that they gave us. And she said, this is from a plane that doesn't exist on our world. And I was like, oh, really?
Intrigue.
So your theory is that perhaps the devastation was a rift opening?
Yes, was a rift being stabilized, specifically. Okay. So there was an elemental storm, and the elemental lords have told us that an elemental storm occurred when they stabilized the last rift that happened. I strongly suspect that last rift was the rift to the world where the Kinevin have come from.
Right.
Now, whether or not the people of Kinevin, they have an actual race name, but I'm not going to use it because that's spoilers for the both of you.
Darn it!
This is why Hilary's the lore expert. She knows everything.
It's because I'm nosy. But anyway, so when the people of Kinevin came through, they came through a place where people can't reach easily, and it's and I strongly suspect that place is probably Nalasia, which is this huge magical chaos storm in the center of Annam that nobody can really get to.
Right.
So my theory was that Nalasia happened because Kinevin's rift opened. The devastation happened when it got stabilized, and Nalasia now still continues to exist because we still have access to Kinevin.
What is Nalasia?
Nalasia is the giant elemental storm in the center of Annam that cannot be traversed.
That's a thing.
I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, neither did I.
On the map, map, guys. Like,
Is
it's
it?
actually on the map of Annam. There's just this black region that's like a haze that just says Nalasia in the center, and it's supposed to represent basically the center of Newfoundland that nobody actually goes to.
I
It's all
missed
wildlife
that.
preserve.
Oh, okay.
Right? So, I guess the Staveleys, because I'm fairly sure it's Helen that came up with this, Helen wanted something to sort of explain why nobody walks through the center of Newfoundland. And in real life, it's because it's a wildlife preserve. In like game life, it's because there's actually a huge elemental storm still raging there.
Okay.
And that's why, like, Val's like, well, let's see, where's the other chaotic area on Annam where all of these people who are lizard people could have come from? Well, I don't see any other weird places other than the big, huge black spot in the center. That's probably where they came from.
You think that's where they've, like, set up shop?
I think that's where their gate is. Like, the gate to their world. Because they live in their world.
Okay.
But I think they come through Nalasia to get here.
So, okay, so if I can break this down, the devastation you think was the rift opening for the Kinevin, which created Nalasia.
Yes, I think the devastation was the stabilization of their rift. So
Okay.
I think their rift was trying to open for a while. I thought maybe the people of Kinevin were trying to get away from something. I'm not sure. Maybe they were just trying to make contact. But when their rift started opening, the Elemental Lords did the same thing that we're doing now. And when they completed that, the devastation happened, but Kinevin's gate remained open, and the people of Kinevin could come and go as they please.
Yeah.
Okay.
We may see a similar thing happen when we stabilize the rift and hold fast. Except we would have access to the, for lack of a better phrase, eldritch domain that these rift creatures are coming from.
Great.
Like the Rook.
Why is our plane so popular? When does everybody want to come to our world?
I mean, you can ask the Fae the same thing. Why did the Fae want to come here? They basically came here because Fairy told them to.
That's a question I want to get to as well. But do you think this rift opening for the people of Kinevin is what? Do you think they brought the plague? Because
It might be.
I thought the plague was before the devastation, or was it after?
No.
Oh, right, it was after.
So
Okay, right.
canonically, the devastation is 100 years prior to game.
And
The
devastation
plague,
is
so the devastation is
is
100 years.
yeah.
The plague is 80 years.
Right, okay.
So 20 years after the devastation happened on Annam, the plague hit, and then the Fae came through.
Right.
So the question is, did the Fae bring the plague,
Right.
or did the plague herald the Fae coming, or was the plague a completely anomalous event? We aren't quite sure.
okay.
I don't.
Do you have any theories?
Based on what I know about the Fae races, I can't see the plague being from them.
Okay.
Because there were Fae that came into the world prior to the Mist's opening.
Okay.
It's in the Confederacy lore, but there was like some fauns and halflings that might have come through prior to the big like event where people came in through Sinsiput.
Right.
So there was a suggestion that maybe there were people, like there were Fae who could come across beforehand, but like the big, basically, gates and mist portals opening
Right.
was post-plague, and we're not quite sure why.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because my working theory, doing all the research for this
Yeah.
episode, my theory was that perhaps Fairy saw the plague and everybody being exterminated, basically being eradicated by this plague, and thought now's a good time.
Yeah.
And that's why the Fae came through.
It's entirely possible. We also know that there are some evil aligned Fae in the world. They exist. They're mostly first Fae that Fairy sees as sort of mistakes.
Right.
So if they came through first, and then the elves and things came through, because they were maybe supposed to fix things, who knows, right? But I don't want to go too much into this, because it's actually going to come up in the next game, but...
Oh, okay.
But there are some nasty Fae out there that my character now knows about.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about Lady Val and when she came through the rifts? Because she came through she's old enough to have come through when the big portals opened. Like, she was there for the big event.
Yeah, she
Tell us a little bit
came
about
through with the portals.
Right.
So, I don't actually have a lot of Val's mist backstory done up.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't remember a lot of it very well, and I think that's partially because of how the mists work.
Right.
Like, even when we went to the mists in-game last season, things were very ethereal, nothing was very solid, and I think that's partially because Cass wants things to remain a little bit sort of hazy.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have Val's story basically done up. So she came through with her family. The elven family, so there's 9 major elven families. Colossus is one of them. They represent prosperity. They are unseelie aligned.
Okay.
So there's 4 unseelie or dark courthouses and 4 light courthouses to balance things out. And then Chthonics dead center in the middle because they're the House of Justice and they're supposed to be unbiased and
neutral.
whatnot. Actually, their house sigil actually has white and black, firmly divided, with a Cerberus in the center, which is their symbol. So Val's house has a dragon. She's, not exactly from one of the good aligned houses, but they all came through, a bunch of them together. And their goal was to help set up Tor'Jadin, once they had heard Tor'Jadin existed, as a settlement for the Fae. So the lore that myself and Will had come up with was that elves are supposed to care for all Fae. Granted, they're supposed to care for elves above others, because that's how their code works. But the idea is that they are supposed to better all Fae in the world. Mm-hmm. They're supposed to be the stewards, the big brothers and big sisters of everybody. So the idea of the 9 elven houses was that these are the houses that rule, and they represent, each of them, an aspect of fairy, or a good trait of fairy, and they're supposed to promote it within society. So when Colossus came through, their goal was to aid the prosperity of Tor'Jadin and Sinsaput. That is their goal. So Val was part of this group. They went into the city. The city had been cleaned by this point, so she didn't see a lot of the bodies, but she knew about what had happened and how there were, mass graves of humans.
Right, because it may not have been super clear. When the elves showed up to Tor'Jadin, it was just dead bodies everywhere.
Dead bodies everywhere.
Okay.
Of whatever bodies were left, because it's very clear that this is 2 years into the plague when the elves and whatnot came through. So, there might not have been that many recent dead. We don't know when Sinsaput was hit the hardest or when Tor'Jadin fell. Right. The way that I sort of wrote it in my character's backstory was there were bodies, and the Fae had to clean them up. And this made them very uncomfortable because there were just these unidentified people who had died in this city. And there was this whole thing of, well, I guess we'll clean this up then and we'll get new curtains. And so they came
spruced the place up a bit.
So they came into the city and they sort of remodeled it to suit their needs. So the city itself is actually tiered, akin to Minas Tirith, actually.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. The 9 elven houses sit on the top tier and overlook the city. Middle tier is sort of more merchant areas, and the big bazaar is there. And then lower city is sort of more outskirts and stuff, and then you've got Karen Price. I wouldn't say slums, but there's definitely poorer people living there. Because you have to remember that because of elven code, you're not allowed to let other elves go hungry. So everybody has to be cared for. So elven society, by nature of the elven code, has to be socialist.
Okay.
So everybody would at least be able to have a house and would be able to live somewhere.
Okay.
So you probably wouldn't have slums simply because that's inelegant. Right. But there would be smaller houses, smaller dwellings, etc.
So you said elves are supposed to be sort of the big sisters and the big brothers for the rest of the Fae and take care of them, right? So what sort of roles do the elves have among the Fae to do that job?
So it varies from elf to elf. Obviously, like, my character, where she's from a noble family, is supposed to help lots of people. They help govern. But like an average elf, it might just be that, you know, if you see somebody suffering and they're like a halfling or something on the side of the road, you take them with you back to your house, you give them food, and you help them get on their way, sort of thing. It might be something as simple as, like, protecting another fae, or housing them, giving them clothes, food, shelter, etc., as per the way the Elven Code is written. Because
So elves kind of, from my understanding from my research though, they kind of like run the government of the Fae, don't they?
They are more likely to, yes.
Okay.
Because, well, okay, fauns, they basically live in a society that's like very hedonistic. You do what you love, and that's what you do, and they don't really care about how you do your thing because you do you. Halflings, most halfling societies are based around family units. So, you know, a town is not really seen as a town, it's seen as a group of families, and families that come together and do things communally. So, they're very, like, they're almost communist to a degree, because it's like you share everything with your family members. You share food, you share things like that. So they're not exactly, you know, going to go that extra step to have government. Cairn are Cairn, and they govern themselves, and they're very keen on just governing themselves, because Cairn prides have very specific matriarchies in place.
Right. Are they the sort of cat folk?
They're the cat folk,
Gotcha.
Yes. Our Luru, which are the dog people, are just, you live with your pack and you don't talk to other people, and that's it.
I think they kind of have a alpha, male and female sort of thing going on as well, don't they?
They do. They have, this was some terminology that we took from some fantasy lore that we had read, but there's actually an Arluru language now, and the alphas are known as the Draga and the Drapa.
Okay.
Draga means alpha male, Drapa is alpha female. There's also a gender neutral term, which is more along the lines of Draena, which is, you know, alpha. Because we wanted our Luru to be a language that was essentially gender neutral if it needed to be.
Right.
But yes, they do have they do have a structure. It's just that their structure is very insular, and they don't really care about how other people govern themselves, because everything's about the pack. So once you have the alphas and the betas, everybody's the same, unless you're the Omega Wolf, in which case everybody kind of, you know. Yeah, you're the bottom of the totem pole. Yes, and then so you talked about halflings. We've got fauns. We've got Cairn. We've got our Luru. Orcs. They have tribal leaders. They are very much survival of the strongest. And if you're the strongest in the group, then you're the tribe leader. If you're the smartest in the group, you're the advisor to the tribe leader, and you're probably going to live longer than the tribe leader. And dwarves, so dwarves are the other ones that are kind of very politically organized. The thing is, dwarves have kings. So, whereas the elven houses have their archdukes and archduchesses, because they follow more of like a Germanic sort of structure. The dwarves have kings, and there's 5 dwarven kings.
Okay.
But the dwarven kings are not in the world. Like, they're not in the known world, they're still back in the mists. So everybody who is a high-ranking dwarf, technically, is a magistrate.
Okay.
So they're a step under.
Right.
Yep.
All right.
There are some characters who want to change that and want to have, like, a dwarven king who has come into the world, but that's not canon yet.
Yeah. That's a character that I've seen once, but yes, not yet to be approved.
Yes, he is not yet to be approved. I kind of hope he does get approved.
Yeah.
He might just be a magistrate, you know, the son of a magistrate who has decided to call himself king.
Right.
There is a dwarven kingdom. There's at least 2 in game. One is in the Rocklands. It's basically like it's not the Underdark, but it's a very large subterranean city in the Rocklands. And then there's one in the Cordillera Mountains, which is basically Torngat Mountains in Labrador. And then there's, based on Boren's backstory, there's the Ironhammer clan
Right.
in the Thunder Mountains. And I'm
So can you talk a little bit about your first game with Lady Val, and because I mean you had played for how long before you were Lady Val?
I played for approximately, now let me see, I started in July of 2014 with the first 8 players who played Epoch ever. So July, August, September, October, November. So I had played for at least 5 months before I even came up with the idea of Lady Val.
And then you moved away, I think? And
no, I moved away in September
of
that year. So what happened was I moved to England because shenanigans happened and I went away for school. But I still played Epoch. So I actually flew back for Fire Feast in November because we made sure it coincided with my school interviews here, just so that I could LARP.
Okay.
Because there were only...
Well, that's dedication right there.
There were 8 of us at the time, so we were like, you know what? If one of us is down, we really don't have a lot to go with. And I was one of the few people who magically healed people at the time.
Right.
So, if we wanted to have anything, it would make sense to have all healers on board for the Fire Feast. Now, Fire Feast... at that time was a non-combat event. It was just a social thing. And while we were there, myself and Will were talking about Phineas. We were like, Phineas is a shifty dude. He's a shifty dude. And Will was like, you know what, though? Shifty as he is, he's probably not all that shifty. And I was like, well, what if there was a shifty merchant? And Will was like, go on. So I was like, well, what if there was like a, sort of an anti-Phineas that came into game, like a merchant who was out there to take advantage of people. And Will was like, you mean somebody to cause political tension? I was like, yes. And so Lady Val was born. The idea was to have a character come in who would take advantage of people. And put them in compromising situations where they'd have to make choices about, loyalties and whatnot.
Right.
Lady Val, when she first came in, was a lot more comical than she is now.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys saw my post on the Epoch forums, but, Lady Val was originally based a lot on Rarity from My Little Pony. She was supposed to be over the top.
Tony just facepalmed.
She was supposed to be over the top, but she was supposed to have this, nasty streak to her that would cause her to take advantage of people. And being an elf was, the best way to do that because of the way the code works. It was well, you value elves, which means you don't value people.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. So, Val came in with this intention of screwing over a lot of people. The thing is, people grew on her, and she lost a lot of her, I suppose, negative attitude towards people. Particularly because she would rather win people over, you get more flies with honey than with vinegar, so it made more sense for her to be nice to people and get them indebted to her because of that, than go up and be like, so I just murdered your family. Yeah.
That's horrifying.
That is horrifying. So up until September game, where we went to the Mists, Val was very keen on, getting as much power in the town as possible. And then shenanigans happened with the elves, and she was like, okay, this is not good.
Right.
I have to either side with these people that I was planning on kind of stabbing in the back, but now I take care of them. Because it was kind of like...
That's such a 180.
Yeah, well, see, what happened was, when you made her a council member, she was like, now I have 30 children.
Right. And it's very elven to be like, okay, everybody gather around, I'm your mom now, because I guess Faye kind of take that role in government.
Yeah, it made sense for her to do it, but I didn't realize she was going to do it until it happened. Mm-hmm. She basically made this, like, when Lessa was shouting about purging everybody, that was the first time Val was like, this is wrong.
Right.
Okay, so now with Val on the council, what are her new motives? What are her new ambitions, if any?
So, her new ambitions are basically the betterment of HOLDFAST. So, she wants to try and eliminate anything that is going to inconvenience or damage HOLDFAST in any way, shape, or form. So, like, when the Rook came in, that's the title that I've given this Rift creature, who looks like a chess piece. When he came in and was basically like, I'm gonna destroy your entire town and kill all of you, Val was like, hell no! Because the way I play Val, to a degree, is... Okay, so I am obsessed with dragons. That is the best way to put it. I like playing characters who tend to have those sort of tendencies where they enjoy having lots of material things. Val's thing, though, is if she was going to be any kind of dragon, she would be a green dragon because she collects people. So when the Rook sort of made this thing where it's like, I'm going to destroy your entire town and kill everybody in it, she's like, mine.
Right.
Not yours, mine. Fuck off. Sorry. I didn't mean to...
We'll bleep it, it's fine.
But so now she's got this thing where she's like, we need to defeat these Rift creatures at all costs because they're threatening my town and my people, and basically she knows that if they succeed, they're going to destroy the entire universe anyway. So they're going to go after Tor'Jadin. They're going to go after everybody. So we might as well take them on here. So... She does have some plans in the works to aid HOLDFAST. She may or may not be trying to get several other political parties on side with HOLDFAST's cause.
Right.
I don't want to spoil too much because this is going to be details for May game.
I know a little bit of the juicy gossip.
Oh, dang.
I know a little bit of it.
So I'm the only one in the dark here?
No.
The only thing I know is that I'm going underwater next
Honestly,
game. It's the only thing I know.
So everybody is in the dark except for two people. One is Pierre.
Why am I not surprised?
Because Pierre called Val out on something, and Val basically had to explain why she did it.
Okay.
And this happened in PMs. It's still ongoing now, but this has been happening in PMs. The only reason Erica knows is because I was way too excited.
And I was nosy.
You were also nosy. And I also had to explain why there were things at Jake's house.
Right, yeah.
So, yeah. But yes, so Val's plan is to basically get the town in a political position where it's going to be able to prosper, because that's her job.
Okay,
right?
So the whole hierarchy, I'm not sure if that's the right word to use, but of elves is to like make sure like not only look after other elves, but look after other fae as well. With your new ambitions to look after all of HOLDFAST, all of HOLDFAST also includes all of its human characters as well. So where do you stand on the human characters? Like, do you think elves or Lady Val should look after the humans as well, or what? I mean, I don't know. What's your take on humans?
I think in the next episode, along with the knights, I'm going to get into the elf debacle. So feel free to cover that as well.
Okay. Val was originally very, very like, you're humans. You're humans. So, whatever. But now it's kind of, she is more accepting of the humans in town because most of them are aware.
Right.
So they've actually gone that step to learn magic.
So awareness is, just for those of you out here who don't play the game, awareness is when you can see and handle magical energy. If you are aware of magic, that doesn't necessarily mean you can use it. But you can at least see the magical energy.
Exactly.
And interact with it.
Right.
And that's...
It's a skill.
It is a skill. And it is a skill that not all humans have. All elves do have. And the only other, the only other human she's seen, visibly make that effort was Medaka the Fourth.
Right.
Because she was there when Medaka the Fourth came to town to learn magic and then go back and be emperor.
Ron learned awareness.
I know Kron learned awareness. This is also why Kron... I mean, okay, so Kron was in pretty good standing from the beginning anyway. And this is because Lady Val has a running tally in her head of who's the most useful and least stupid. So, so she ranks people, especially the humans, based on how useful they are and how stupid they are. So Timian's at the bottom of this list. Dayron fluctuates a lot from day to day.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Pierre's probably near the top.
Right. That makes sense.
Kron is definitely above Dayron somewhere, but I don't think he's as high as Pierre.
You know what? I'll take it.
Asher was higher, but then she decided to kill some elves, so she went a little bit lower.
I had to do what I had to do!
Yes.
I was frozen for that whole thing, by the way.
Yeah, so Val also knows about that, and she also knows that you got in a position where you... Doesn't really matter anyway.
It doesn't matter right now.
They weren't elves by that point. And my character very much sees them as... HOLDFAST didn't really kill elves, because they weren't really elves.
It sounds like she's in denial.
Well, that's what Fairy told her. So. She's like, well, if Fairy sees them as not elves, let's see them as heretics. So, anyway. Right. So with regards to humans, she's much more accepting. She's actually kind of proud of the fact that all of the humans in the town are either aware or psychic. So, yeah. Because she's like, well, clearly, they've bettered themselves. They want to learn the magic. They want to learn psychic. They're fine. It's the ones that don't want to learn.
I don't even know a single character that doesn't have at least awareness. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head. I'm sure
Pierre doesn't have awareness.
Pierre definitely has awareness.
Pierre has awareness, and Hugo does not. Hugo does not have awareness.
Oh, because I just remember the game where some sort of enchanter came into town. It was sort of like a Pied Piper mod and started leading people away with music. And basically the call was, anybody with at least awareness 1, follow the music. And we all looked behind us and Pierre was just standing there by himself.
No, Datura was next to him. It was literally like Datura and Pierre share this glance that's like,
what are they doing?
Meanwhile, my character's following them because I'm aware as anything. And then, actually, I love that event because once they stopped, it was basically Val being like, excuse me, and then all the knights backed her up, and she was like, yeah.
This is good.
I like it good. I enjoy this. Now, granted, the other person was an elf, so we couldn't hurt him, but there was still that point of, can you please not? Me and, 8 other people say no, and they have swords.
So which characters, you were mentioning sort of your list of, what each character can do and how smart they are. So what characters do you see as, because I see Lady Val as definitely, because you're an intelligent person in general, I see Lady Val as an intelligent character. So which characters do you see as maybe Lady Val has met her match, maybe Lady Val is gonna have a little bit of a difficult time sort of swaying this person to, to what she wants to do? Like, what sort of characters do you feel meet that I don't know.
Okay.
Words.
One of them is not in game yet. I have met somebody who is planning on playing a character. That character is not in game yet, but it's going to be interesting when that character comes in.
Okay, so the character is in game, but the player already...
No, the player is not in game either. This
Really?
is a new player.
Oh, that's cool.
A new player.
I'm excited.
And I was like, this is going to be fun.
We're going to talk about this after we stop recording.
Yes,
I want to know.
Yes. In terms of characters currently in game, Kristoff is definitely one. That's Will's character.
Will's elf character,
Will's
right?
elf, yeah. Now, Volk has always been sort of up there on the list simply because Volk is one of the few characters who can be actively malicious and survive.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
That's difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult. Same thing with Hare, actually. So, Gerald's character is probably also up there on that list because he has pulled quite a few things that I know of outside of game that Val doesn't know in game.
Right. Tony's face. Tony's not impressed.
So I think Hare is also one of those intelligent people. Phineas is not in game enough to actually justify saying Phineas, but if Phineas was around, maybe a little bit more he would be. Absolutely not Marcus. I'm sorry, Adam. But if you can shout for the Empire at somebody and they'll not lob off their own leg, like... who else? I mean, Dagrin has his moments. But other than that, I don't think Val really sees anybody else as being not necessarily as smart as her or as cunning as her.
Right.
Because I feel like Val's not necessarily the smartest of people, but she is very good at playing people and understanding how people think.
Yeah. She's a force to be reckoned with, for sure.
Yeah.
And she definitely, she has a lot of the town on her side.
Yeah, because she knows what to say to people.
Right.
She knows what people want to hear. She's a little bit like Greybeard in that respect. She is also very good at getting people to make a compromise. And I think that's also one of her great strengths is she's willing to compromise and she's willing to get people to sort of make up.
Yeah.
And she's good at convincing people to make up.
Are you ready for the season?
I am.
Is all your crafting done? Is everything?
No. So I have a cloak I still need to get made because I don't have time to do it. I've got an exam this Friday. And it's going to be a doozy of an exam. And then I start my next rotation and I've got an overnight.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, I got to stay in the hospital all night delivering babies.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting! I'm sorry.
Her maternal instincts just kicked in.
Wow, she's way more maternal than I am because I'm like, I have to watch people deliver babies.
I'm just like, you get to see life come into the world. That's so exciting.
I guess so. I was on NICU for a while. That's more interesting, actually. NICU neonates, because then, like, the baby's born, you don't necessarily have to deliver them, but they come to you in, like, this little, like, swaddling thing, and you get to, like, make them all warm and happy. And then you get the ones that are, like, you know, in danger. So you're like, I'm gonna save this baby's life.
Oh my gosh, I'm tearing up.
No, I legit saved a baby.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Okay. So this was one of my first shifts in the NICU. We were preparing for this emergency C-section where we knew that the baby was very premature, like 23 weeks premature.
Wow.
And we weren't sure this baby was going to make it. The family wasn't sure this baby was going to make it, but they were willing to try.
Right.
So, C-section happened, and within minutes, like, we were there. As soon as the baby was out, somebody had grabbed the baby, and we had gotten them into the NICU suite, and basically, the baby wasn't breathing.
Oh my gosh.
So we were, we had prepared for this. So we started working on the baby, getting him warm, getting, air, started using, life-saving measures to save this baby. And we were there for 20 minutes trying to get this baby to the point where we could make them stable and send them on to the NICU, even if it was on, like, respiratory help. Mm-hmm. And after 20 minutes, we actually managed to do it. And this was a big thing because there was a lot of speculation about whether this child was going to make it. And they did. And the family was just, like, I remember the family coming in afterwards, actually, when we were bringing them out on the ventilator. And they were just so happy.
Just in tears, yeah.
Well, yeah, they weren't sure this was going to happen, and they weren't sure if they were going to try for any more kids after this, and it was just, like, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of dangers when kids are born that early. Like you do have to use a substance called surfactant to try and get their lungs to actually develop, because their lungs aren't developed.
Oh my gosh!
At that point, like so our lungs have things in them like a watery substance to keep them open. So we actually, this goes back to like comparative anatomy and etc. But like all vertebrate life on this earth needs water to be able to breathe. So the insides of our lungs basically have like a watery-like substance to help gas transfer.
Okay.
Babies born before 23 weeks don't have this, and even some babies at 23 weeks don't have this.
Oh my gosh.
So we made sure to like give this baby steroids when he came out, and gave the mother steroids before he was born so that he might have a chance of having some of the surfactant. And we actually gave him some artificial surfactant to help him breathe, and he made it through.
You need a podcast where you talk about this stuff, because you can hear a pin drop over here. Me and Tony are like on the edge of our seats.
Actually, I can recommend a really good medical podcast that's actually based in Canada. It's called White Coat Black Art. It discusses a lot of the ethical things with regards to medicine and how medicine works in Canada. And it goes from everything from like, what politically correct terms do we have for people who are overweight in the medical community, to like Aboriginal medicine and where do we stand in terms of like the cannabis debate, right?
That's so cool.
So I highly recommend it. It's run by CBC.
All right, so let's wrap this episode up with one final question.
Yes.
Hilary.
Yes.
Do you have any new characters that you're going to bring in that you can tell us about? What's the juice?
Okay. All right. So
We should preface this by saying it.
So I am in a position where I'm basically pseudo cast. I'm not part of the formal cast team or the permanent cast team, but cast calls me in to do a lot of character work.
And Hilary has a lot of characters.
Yes, I have a lot of characters. So just to give people an idea of my current characters, we have Flora, the lesbian pirate doctor, who has her own lesbian pirate ship. We have Hilda, the essentially German mermaid, who is half dwarf.
The one who makes us all drop to our knees. Like, oh my gosh, Hilda, I'm hurting. Please come help me.
Oh my gosh. So I have plans for Hilda this season. I want her to learn medic and come in a nurse outfit.
Am I going to be on the operating table again?
No, probably not. I've talked to Sharon about that and been like, Tony needs a break.
3 times.
To be fair, the last one wasn't supposed to be you.
That's true.
People just kind of jumped on it. And, yeah. And I couldn't say no. So there's Hilda, the half-dwarf German mermaid. There's Tala, who is the a.k.a. of Ata Bajorvan. So Bajorvan is the tribe. Ata means tribe in Arluru, so she is the shaman of the Arluru tribe. Who else do we have? Hydrea, the mermaid.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I'll get familiar with her this May event.
Who we recently found out is actually the princess of the mermaids.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
You're a freaking mermaid princess. That's the best.
So, new characters coming in this season. I know I haven't covered all of my old characters, but new characters coming in this season. So, we have... Actually, I'll tell you about this one, because it'll be fun to have you guys sweat. There's another mermaid character coming in called Meluzine. Meluzine is a mermaid. I don't want to give you too much, but you know, Erica, how you sent me a picture, like this video of like this jet black eel going through the water?
Yep, I know the one.
Oh, okay, I see where this is going.
Meluzine, her tail's not here yet, but it's as it's a jet black oil slick iridescent color.
Oh my gosh.
And so she's going to be coming in.
Will she be coming in May when I have to dive down to the ocean?
She will not
that's
be a
nice.
May game. Her tale will not be ready till at least July.
Okay.
It's being made by a mertailer called Finfolk. I highly recommend you check them out. So Melusine will be coming in. There's actually Marrow, who you are probably going to meet. She is the queen of the merpeople.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Kron's basically going on an underwater adventure.
That's
Yeah.
so
May
exciting.
event.
Although, I was saying that because Kron is going underwater, we need somebody who's a main character to witness it, so I'm feeling that, like, maybe Timian should get turned into a merperson for an episode, just so he can be there.
Because he is the main character.
Because he's the main character. Alright, so that's two. There's Silva.
That sounds cool.
She is an elf, from Snow Eagle tribe.
Oh.
She is,
It's like Wood Elf?
Viking elf.
Oh. Tony, be still, you're beating hearts.
Silva, so Snow Eagle tribe elves are from the Crescent Islands. It's not a super well-developed bit of lore. However, I've scoured the Toronto website to gather all of it. So, Snow Eagle tribe is known for having barbaric elves. They basically see themselves as, like, better than every other elf in existence. So, like, the pansy elves from Tor'Jadin have to be saved because they're clearly too weak.
I think I'm in love already.
And so Silva is actually a member of the lesbian pirate ship.
Less in love.
She has super long ears that are, like, tattered and shredded, basically, with, like, piercings going down either side.
That's so cool.
And she also has this trait where she's, like, filed her incisors to points just to make herself look more intimidating. She wears copious amounts of armor. She's got, like, furs and everything. She is supposed to be, like, a tank.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to be fun.
Yeah. So Silva should be coming in hopefully this season. I still need to get her approved by Sharon.
Is this going to be a cast character?
This will be a cast character,
Okay.
yeah. She won't be a personal... I'm not planning on taking on any personal characters anytime soon, although I do have an idea for some in the works. And the other character I'm thinking of bringing in is a character that people have already met in Applevale. She is a tiny Welsh orc who, she works in one of the shops in Applevale, and she wants to just come in and sell some things in town.
Oh, I had no idea about this at all.
That's adorable.
So,
Or is it dork? I'm sorry, that was a bad joke.
so yeah, she's actually from the Scarred Lands, like Big Bun.
Cool.
Yeah, so she's a refugee from there. She came over. She has this quiet Welsh accent, and she doesn't really like to talk all that much. But she just wants to try and help Applevale get back to where it needs to be. And she has these tiny little tusks.
Love her. She's so cute already.
Yeah, so she's basically like just the tiniest and sweetest of orcs, who just wants to sort of help Applevale because Applevale's in trouble right now.
Hi.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have any socials you want to promote? Perhaps your cosplay page or anything like that?
I mean, I could. Yeah, sure. That's the thing. I mean, if you're in the St. John's area or even Newfoundland, you should always come to Newfoundland, like the Crafternoons that we have weekly with Epoch. That's every Thursday. Here in town, you can search the Epoch page for more info. And I do actually have a cosplay and crafting page. It's not the best.
But it exists.
I think your Flora costume is like the coolest thing ever, and people should go look at it.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm Prince of Hearts cosplay and crafting on Facebook, and I also have a Tumblr that I post a lot of stuff on. I don't know if a lot of people know me as that, but I go by a pseudonym. I use Alan Hart, which was my Haven.
That was your Haven character, yeah.
Yeah. So I actually refer to myself as Alan on the page, and I'm Prince of Hearts on Tumblr.
Cool.
The life of a geeky med student.
Our socials, you can check us out on Instagram at HOLDFASTLARP. We kind of just like, we plan on posting a lot of our own characters, and we just sort of post fun things throughout the week for you guys to check out in between episodes. Tony, do you have any socials you want to post?
Nope.
Yeah, you're not a socials guy.
Not really. I'm still trying to work on getting an Instagram page for my my job.
Your job,
because
yeah.
that seems to be a direction that people like to go in, and I haven't touched anything besides Facebook, and I barely Facebook. So no, not really.
Well, I have everything. You can check out the HOLDFAST LARP Instagram page, or you can check out myself. I am GuysIDK on like everything. That's GUYSIDK on Instagram, on Twitter, and I think I'm gonna get a HOLDFAST the podcast Facebook group up and going.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I'd follow that.
Because then we can talk about episodes. We can discuss episodes. Yada yada yada.
Oh, nice. That'd be cool.
Yeah. But that's not up yet, so don't look for that yet. All right, so Hilary, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank you for filling us in on even more lore. I feel like I did not realize how much lore there really is to go through to catch people up, but I feel like we did a good job.
I feel like the gap has been closed at least a little bit. I mean, I figured out a bunch of stuff that I already did not know about already, so...
Ooh, if you guys are okay with it, I would actually love to come back to discuss some of the other cultures that we're working on, because we are doing a major overhaul of the lore, myself and Sharon.
Yes!
Yeah, most definitely.
We have some stuff about the elemental kin that we'd love to bring to you guys. We've actually expanded the Wastelander tribes, so the people of the Great Wastes.
Amazing.
Oh.
Yeah. We've got some info from the Crescent Islands, obviously, that we're working on. And then we've got actual information about the Empire. Instead of just pages upon pages of, here's the military, guys! We've discussed, what the different towns would be like, what all of the provinces would be like, obviously outside Sinsiput. And if you do want to talk more Sinsiput, I'm always here.
Nice.
Right, yeah, we'll definitely get that together. We're getting pretty close to the season, so I think we're gonna do as much backstory as we can before the season starts, and then get into the actual stories of the season. But in between the season, I want to get a lot more back into lore.
Once the season starts up, because first game is only a week and a half away.
Yes.
What the flip flop? Are you a week and a half?
Okay, it's not this weekend coming up, but it's next weekend.
Yeah.
It's less than 2 weeks away.
The front door.
That's why I'm
It's crunch time for crafting.
This is why I'm I need somebody to make my cloak for me, because it's not going to happen, and I'm going to just freeze to death.
Oh.
At least I have a tent.
On that note, I need to go start crafting right now. So, thank you again, Hilary, for joining us. Yeah. We will have you back soon. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Yep, thanks for listening in, guys. It's always a pleasure.
We need a sign-off.
We need, an outro of sorts. Maybe we can...
stay classy. But
stay
not
classy.
But not stay classy, but like that. All right, we'll think of it next time.
You could always do, what they do in, Inheritance, may your swords stay sharp kind of thing.
May your swords stay foamy. and not chipped like mine.
Yeah, mine got bent recently.
Oh, no.
I know, it was Fengir. Not the Fengir's in game anymore.
All right, then. Goodbye.
Goodbye, guys.
Bye.
Have a good day.